Let's get to our discussion now. This morning we will be revisiting the Lagos NSAS panel report. That will be our next phase of discussion. And as it is, recall that on November 15th, the panel submitted two reports, one on police brutality cases and another on the Lekki incident investigation. The panel had listed 9 fatalities from the shooting at the Lekki tollgate on October 20, 2020. He recommended adequate funding and welfare for the police force, disciplinary action for some army officers, and that of the army be discouraged from intervening in internal security matters. Some other recommendations have to do with making the Lekki tollgate a memorial site for the NSAS protests, among others. Now, out of the 32 recommendations made by the Judicial Panel of Inquiry, the Lagos State Government accepted 11, rejected 1, and accepted 6 with modifications. We'll be looking at all of this, and the agenda is for us to find a way forward for all of these, and from the minds of those who have been at the center of all of these. Joining me in the studio to discuss this and make sense of all of this is Segun Awosanya, a member of the Lagos Judicial Panel. It's nice to have you join me now.
Thank you very much.
And welcome back to the country after a while.
Thank you very much.
Great. Now, let me start it this way. I recall that before 2020, you were one of those who had been an advocate of advocate against police brutality, and I recall you have been on the program several times where we talked about this, even when the issue of protest far beyond the issue of protest. In fact, some people have credited the NSAS hashtag to you. The part of your activity created, or popularized the idea of the NSAS that everybody talks about right now. If we start sitting right here and looking back to 3-4 years ago when we've been talking about the issue of police brutality and so on, what has changed really in your mind, and what has been fulfilled also in your mind, and what is not?
Yeah, thank you very much for your question, and thank you for always welcoming us to this. I say us because I know that I don't represent myself. I represent a nation. I represent a generation unborn. I also represent the youth of this nation who are more or less basically affected by the police brutality, because they are the ones whose livelihood are being disrupted, based on the miscommunication or the institutional gap between themselves and the police institution. And from the way I look at it, if I were to look back, when they say that when you correct your mistakes and your errors, you're not shaming your past self, you're actually training your future self. And that is the hallmark of responsibility. And also, it is always best, if you want to show your leadership quality, to prevent other people from the issues and problems that you have to endure. And so that's one of the reasons why we're working towards building a legacy that will not, creating a future that our children will not have the cause to suffer the way we have suffered. Looking back now, a lot has changed. But again, because we're dealing with culture, when you're engaging culture, it's not something, a way of life of a people, it's not something that happens by fiat. It's not something that happens overnight. It's not a change you see almost immediately. It is a gradual process. The police institution did not get derelict overnight. It happened over decades, 9 decades, for example, over 90 years, because police institution is actually older than Nigeria, than the Nigerian state. So if you're going to change a police structure or system that was built on a 1943 act that actually that does not recognize human rights proclamation, then you know that you need to begin to do a lot of work, starting with legislation. What we did at the beginning of the design of the NSAS Reform Police NG Advocacy, which simply stands for shut down the culture of impunity and reform holistically the Nigerian police force. That was exactly what the whole idea, the objective of the advocacy and the end goal was all about. But to shut down the culture of impunity, in order to ensure that people understand the message, we have to use the poster child of the tactical unit that was mostly recognized for impunity as at the time, which was the SARS. But of course, underneath that, we are addressing the IRT squad, we're addressing the STS, we're addressing the SACs, that's special anti-kidnapping, special anti-cultism, and the rest of the plethora of tactical squads we have there, even at the divisional level. So with that, people understood that when you say NSAS, you're talking about shutting down impunity and shutting down every single thing or unit that represents or embodies that impunity. But the reform aspect, the reformation aspect, because it is not something that you have to do with a crowd, people are more or less, they just want first to know that they are no longer in danger and their life is no longer endangered. And so with that, if that one goes out of the way, you can now begin to brief them on the movement on the reformation process. So right now, things have not really gotten better in terms of police brutality as it were. We still have skirmishes here and there. We also still have that culture of impunity within the police system, which can be cured by continuous retraining, by continuous fixing of certain nodes within the system. And also, what we did was engage in a multi-layered format where we are running legislation, facilitating bills, when we are following up with the presidency on signing those bills into law, when we are running intervention, that is a process through which people can call in and get help, in case they have issues with police officers. Of course, we are very mindful, because if you're building a nation, you don't build a nation around individuals. We're not building strong men. It is not about me or any other person. It's about institutions. So with that, it started with people calling us, but over time, we're able to help build a bridge over the gap between the people and the police to the point where they can now be comfortable enough to begin to call the police. And that's where the complaint response unit came in. And of course, as we're working with the legislation also, the complaint response unit is recognized in the Police Act of 2020. All this happened before the protest of 2020. The Police Trust Fund was signed of 2019 and Police Act 2020 was signed. So what we have now is a democratized police structure that operates with accountability and transparency, that respects human rights, that collaborates with CSOs, that is the civil society organizations, to be able to, reposition the police structure in such a way that they can actually serve the people. They can actually be repositioned to work effectively and be a protector of the people, as against the protector of the rulership against the ruled.
Okay, now you were talking about, because when you came up with the idea of, okay, well, let us shut down the issue of impunity and all of those brutality by, the different special committees and squads within the police system, your objective was clear.
Yeah.
But however, when the build-up to the protests in 2020, when a lot of people came in and all of that, do you think that all the players that came in that time understood what the agenda was, or what the objective or the aim was?
I've always said something, that we are all guilty of what is called the innovator's dilemma. And what is the innovator's dilemma? You can create a spoon for the purpose of feeding, for people to use at the dining table, for people to devise, to look at it and say, oh, this thing would be a very wonderful weapon to kill or to protect ourselves. And the fact that they are using that spoon to kill does not invalidate the purpose for which the spoon was made. The same is true for gunpowder. It wasn't meant for us to use it to kill ourselves. And that's why we have the Nobel Peace Prize today. So with that, the advocacy was designed for the people. It does not belong to Segalink. It belongs to the people. And if government had been proactive enough, had been conscionable enough, had been responsive enough, had been transparent and accountable enough to let the people know, this is where we are on this journey. These are the things that were put in place. This is what must not happen again. This is how we're beefing up the reportage and the understanding of what is there. And if the IG has come out to say, look, I have looked at, I have perused the data from 2017 till date. I have seen the areas, the states where we have a spike in abuse and where we have an increase. Because again, that if you look at the data, sometimes when you see a spike, it could be that in that state people are more savvy and they report more, and in another state they don't report as much. Not that they don't have as much police brutality, because we have just one single police system in the country. So when the anger of the people, you should understand that when we say for years we have been planning to run mad, until now we have not started biting trees. We have been talking about NSAS, and people have been talking about legislation, they've been passing bill, we've been watching interviews and all, and this is 2020. Many years after, the police are still doing the same thing that we have been complaining about. So that struck something, a chord in the youth, to show the government that, look, the advocates and the CSOs are not the only people involved in this dialogue. We, the youth, are at the receiving end, and we are with them. And so they need to show, that they are involved. They need to show that they are concerned. They need to show that their life is at risk, and they need to create that political will that makes that issue, that topical issue, an urgent matter. And that's exactly what happened in the protest. I supported the protest wholeheartedly. All my media campaign supported the protest until when it was being stretched beyond normal, after governments have responded to do certain things. But
we'll come back to that point, where you said until things went beyond normal, and then we'll certainly look at those sides and see what we can learn from there and how things went. All right, we're discussing with Segun Awosanya here. He is credited in some quarters by a lot of people as the one who designed and came up or popularized the idea of NSAS in so many ways. We also will be having Obania Kinwale Janos. Let me come to you on this. You have been following this development all the while as well. You saw those who were victims of the protest at that time, including the rest of us that are here. We're all victims one way or the other. And as a way of moving forward, a lot of recommendations were made, here and there. But some of the recommendations were taken, others were not taken. And we're still here, still looking for that final closure one way or the other. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I heard the original owner of NSAS movement say something the last time. And he ended his statement saying that he decided to move back a bit when the government started making provision for some of the demands for the protest before the thing was hijacked, so to say. Without being immodest, we have to give it to him, because he started this campaign about not only about the police brutality, but about police welfareism as well. Because the police brutality is a reflection of a welfare society that we are. Let me say without missing word that history will judge Mr. Awosanya fairly, and he has done his own bits. Either people want to castigate him or people want to whip up sentiment that he was not setting fire bombs on buildings and what have you. The NSAS movement, based on what I read on his profile, was basically to look at the atrocity and the abnormalities, having police officers going out of rule of engagement. Some of these factors were actually dealt with in the report of the panel. But if either we like it or not, some of the panelists or some of the people invited to be on the board of the panel at a particular point in time became very emotional. And when you allow emotion to overrun you, even before the report of the panel start coming out, you could see a whole lot of panelists already saying they are not interested, they are not going to have their way. When you go to a panel, it's a two-way thing. And you are going there not to go and enforce your own will, but to listen to others and see where we meet at the crossroad. And I think one of the things that Mr. Awosanya has done rightly well during that period was to ensure that, irrespective of the prayer from here and there, within and outside the country, he kept his cool to say, okay, what is the goal? The goal is to ensure that the average Nigerian on the street with dreads are not being attacked, or you are using iPhone and ask, what do you do? The average policeman over there is able to pay for his family fitness and what have you, to ensure that, do we actually need a special squad to be taking Yahoo, to be taking people with dreads, people with laptop? do we have effective policing? Are the police, even the mode of training for the police officers, is it up to the international standard? Why should police be chasing secondment into EFCC, international, and what have you? These are some of the things, because if we look at what the panel eventually dealt with, which actually deals with the original purpose of NSAS. The original purpose of NSAS was not to kill all police that have killed people.
Of course. Is
to ensure that while moving forward, the conduct of a policeman should reflect his training, should reflect what policing system it is. And I remember one of the things they were saying is that possibly because we have MPF, the Nigerian Police Force, every time you see a policeman on the street, you want to apply the policing and the force. And they were saying, why don't let us police force instead of us using force? And if you look at the substantial part of the panel report, actually speaks to all these things. But we are in a nation whereby the national constitution limited the state in terms of what they can do. Like Sanwo-Olu or hate Sanwo-Olu for all you care. Sanwo-Olu cannot. You remember when they went to the military facilities where they were not allowed in? You remember? You remember all of us were asking Sanwo-Olu who gave the order. You remember all those things? So this is a country whereby a whole lot of things are being done. The executive power is so enormous at the center. And as much as you also want to be careful in terms of you asking that you should give forces, police forces, to the state government, because we have seen how Amotekun, neighborhood watch are being used, even civil defense. So for me, we should first see ourselves as a victor. First of all, that is the first time when all of us cry for Abiola must become president in 93 and what have you, till the man died in 1997, Abiola never became president. Oputa panel was set up to review all those injustices, what was done. Now, it's the first time that Nigerians agitated that we want this done. Either you like it or not. The case of Abba Kyari that we are seeing today is as a result of the ongoing reform system happening in the police. Yeah. So, for me, it is a victory for the crooners of NSAS and a victory for democracy as it were, because majority will have their way, minority will have their say. Either you like it or not. The man in Akwa Ibom did not protest like the man in Lagos. So when we are looking at it holistically, Lagos, Ibadan, you could see the governor of Oyo State when they were even hitting police officers. What about those two police that were at raw life on the streets? Were they attended to? Have we attended to a police officer that is going to pay for his uniform this month? That's going to collect 50,000 naira after tax and paying 30,000 naira, and you said the same man will not brutalize to survive for his family. So for me, the NSAS panel, the panelists, they've done fair well, but some of them allow emotion to overrun them because we want to, what people are saying is in vibe. This is what is in vogue, and this is what people want to know. Governance is all about that.
All right. Now, Shagun, the panel report, which a lot of persons were waiting for, in some quarters, it was said to have been leaked, before there were reactions here and there. But the point there is, why do you think there were too many controversies that even those who were at the panel, didn't come, when they come out to, and we heard comments from them, they were not necessarily speaking in one voice to say, okay, we were there, this was the agreement, this was what we, and all of that. Make us understand, beyond the issue of emotions that he talked about.
I once wrote that solutions fail mostly, not because we did not get the right answers, but simply because we failed to convince the right people. So sometimes when people respond to issues, and probably questions were asked, when you read a report for 15 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes, it is a whole year for those who put that report together, because the panel took life out of us, more or less, literally speaking. Because in Nigeria, we understand what justice means. Justice is not positive, it's not negative, it is justice, simply. And you can tell how many years it will take Nigerian courts, naturally, to attend to 60 cases, not to talk of 100 and something cases. And we did this. This was a miracle done by this same panel. We are human beings. And again, we spoke with one voice, despite the fact that we have our own human idiosyncrasies, within us. And we spoke in one voice, we came out with a single report, and I'm sure the state should be shocked that we're able to come to an agreement enough to bring out a report as robust as that speaks to the truth. How many panels will you see that will more or less, go to that far to present issues the way they are without thinking of, oh, what would they say about this or what would they say about that. We're very objective about it. I know that quite well. If you see two brothers walk into the room and smile out, that means they've not told each other the truth. So there will be issues. We will debate. That's why there was a panel. It's not just one single person. We are all there from representing different, area or sector of the economy and different area of law and all. And then we are able to rub minds and look at issues based on the evidence before us. But the issue right here is not even the activities of within the panel. The panel submitted a report, and the report was holistic enough to touch all the sensitive parts, including police petitions, police officers who suffered bodily injuries. They were all attended to. But the issue now is we have, out of the 32 recommendations, we have 11 accepted, 6 were accepted with modifications, 14 fell outside the purview of the states, which were now referred to the National Economic Council, and then 1 was rejected. And that one that was rejected was seen to be contentious. Because of that, the state governor have not, they insulted the panel. No, those are extremes. We, as a panel, commend the state governments, because from the beginning of the, as soon as we finish a particular case or sets of cases, we order for the compensation, and the states have been coming through. The state has given us over 400 million for compensation on those cases. And that's to me, that's clear justice being seen to be served and being served. Because in Nigeria today, the fact that you got a judgment, a favorable judgment, does not guarantee the fact that you'll be able to enforce that judgment and even get compensation. We will know all the conundrums there. But in Lagos State, at the Judicial Panel of Inquiry of 2020 to 2021, justice was served. People who came before the panel, who with favorable cases, they were given justice. So the issue here is this. We have 11 accepted recommendations. We have 6 accepted ones with modifications. What is happening to the compensation of these cases? Why is the state government not finishing what it has started? Why is the state government choosing to emulate a NEC who is used to hemorrhaging trust? You see, we need to win the trust of the people. This is Lagos State. The same way Lagos State will not open its eyes and allows roads in Lagos State to go bad while waiting for federal government. It's the same way they should do justice for people who live in Lagos. So that whenever anything like this happen again, police will be up to the task to say, we will do our best to make sure this doesn't really go bad. Because they know that the state will stand by them. Police must not always be seen to be an orphan. When they do right, we do as if we don't see them. It's their job. When they do wrong, we blow it out of proportion, we catastrophize, when we want them dead for what they have done. So we need to balance the equation. What the panel actually did was to serve justice, was to ensure that all parties, got fair hearing, and to ensure that justice was done. And that was fulfilled. So if that is fulfilled, the ball is now in the court of the state to finish whatever it is, so that we can now face the National Economic Council and ask them and let them know that we will not allow the report of the panel to be swept under the carpet. If the report of the panel or the Judicial Panel of Inquiry across Nigeria have been seen, we will have seen more issues concerning Abba Kyari than what we are seeing just now.
Okay. If we look at all of the experiences that Nigerians went through, not just in Lagos, but the whole of that period, because there were activities in many of the states of the Federation at that time, have we learned some lessons yet? No. As a government, as an institution, the police, and then even the people?
No. We have not learned anything. And I always say, I've said this severally on this program, that my grandfather of blessed memory always tell me, when you chase a goat to the wall, you chase the goat and it gets to the wall. And the goat see nowhere to run to. The ghost will face you. And if you ask ourselves, how did we degenerate to the level of NSAS shutting down the country? We started from COVID lockdown. Yeah. We locked down everywhere. We locked down the palliative. We locked down people from doing their regular business. At a point in time, we opened Wednesday for them to go to market. No work, no food. Electricity was going high, no fuel, nothing. And at a point in time, an hungry man is an angry man. After that, they started opening. Then you now see some people started jumping on the road, harassing people because they had to look for a way of feeding You get to Beggar at 10 p.m., you see police harassing doctors, nurses, trying to even save life. And people feel that this is enough. Why I said we have not learned anything is this. What have we done after that time? What have we done? We want to stylishly increase pump price. We have already increasing the cost of electricity. Now, we have shut down the schools due to ASU. Now, the policeman on the street is not yet being well remunerated. So what have we learned? Nothing. Because it's just like we are, at every point in time, we are sitting on gunpowder. And when he mentioned NEC the other time, I have not seen anything serious coming from that National Executive Council meeting.
Why is that?
Because you remember they are the same person that said it's only few states in the country that are eating the subsidy. That the other states should remove the subsidy and how it to happen. But they've never tell us that all the government that are collecting security vote should be channeled to life of people that are in the rural areas. They have never come to tell us what allocations they have been collecting for years. How has it affected life? They have come to us that let us peg the fuel at 300 and something later per panel. They have come to us that let us borrow the discos that were sold to their friends and cronies to be in business. So we have never learned anything. The political class still take us for granted. Yes, I give kudos to all political class holders distributing cars, distributing this and that. Is that what people need? What we are asking for, either as a police officer or as an average Nigerian, is a means of survival. Let people be able to put food on their table. Don't give them fish. Show them how to fish in the pond. Let them go there and fish for themselves and be able to serve on their table. We have never learned anything. Are you saying the Nigeria is more safer than before? Do you notice that from last year, June till now, all state governments have suspended governance and start talking about 2023? So what I've seen clearly is that we are in a nation whereby the welfare of citizens are not being prioritized, not only the police. So if we have learned lessons, just mention it now. Lagos State has paid millions of naira. Some state government was about 6-5 months after the period that the next set that were coming up with their reports. How many of those states can you say they have implemented the compensations, which is not worth the life of the loved ones till now? What have we learned? We have not learned anything. And the other reason I say we have not learned anything is that I will make reference to this. There was an election 4 days ago, last week or 2 weeks ago in Abuja, the state government in Abuja. You know, the total number of votes cast in the entire FCT is below 200,000 votes. And this same sort of Kwetsoke generation has more than 1 million followers in Abuja. So if we have learned anything, it is time that the Sorosoke youths, the way the Sorosoke during NSAS, Sorosoke with their PVC, the election, the leadership is not about how many followership you have, how many retweets you get. It's about putting the right persons there. And can we do it? Yes, we can if we decide to do it.
Like they say there are no ballot boxes.
APC, PDP, TNM, TSM, and what have you. And we are not showing these people that what will determine our lot is which name we put on the ballot and who voted for. It doesn't matter where you come from. And at that point, we'll begin to see a change in the system. Also to add that if you don't improve the welfare of a police officer, if a commissioner of police today is earning below 350,000 naira per month, forget it. He's not answer, so it's not brutality. It's beginning of brutality. Because if that man, if you look at the cost of living in Lagos, and you said the commissioner of police Lagos State should be earning 350,000 naira, I would deceive ourselves. And he said you should not do PP. What is going to be PP? It's to be attacking people that have dread or people that carry laptop or have iPhone. Until we do that and we have justice, fairness, and welfare for our uniform officers, and remove the force from the police, so that they always remember that it's a policing system. We don't trust even the police on our streets. Information now begins with them to apprehend these criminals. Until we do all this, we have not learned anything, and I hope we will not learn a bigger lesson than what we have learned during NSAS.
It's all right. Now, Shegun, let me come back to you on this. The issue there is, if you ask the average youth on the streets when it comes to how much trust you have in the police, their answers would certainly, obviously, be on the negative to a great extent. Now, this is meant to be able to create some level of synergy and understanding and reorientation and repositioning of what we should do and how we should do it to create what we want and all of that, as the case may be. But how do we begin to achieve that? You have been in this forefront of, let us reform the police, let's create a change and let's make things, but seeing where we are and where we need to be, how far apart are we and how can we bring this together?
Thank you. I think it's a Nigerian issue. Policemen did not fall from the sky. They are members of our society, and we have to take personal responsibility and collective responsibility, beginning with laying emphasis on responsible parenting. You see, knowledge and skills can actually be learnt, but principles like integrity, principles like humility and generosity are tougher to teach. So we must be we are in this too as well. If society itself, it's not the police actually that keeps the criminals away, in actual fact. It is the society that says, not in my backyard, we will not accept this in our land. And because they trust the authority, they will engage them so that they don't do jungle justice, to hand over the criminals to the police officers who will do the needful. Now, if society takes responsibility and police begins to emulate the society, and with their training and their skills and their knowledge in their standard operations procedure, are followed, I'm sure we're going to meet at some point. So it is not just to say, oh, anybody wearing uniform, they are like this. That means we're guilty of the same thing that they are that the police are doing, because police sees most of the youth as corrupt ab initio. And then we, the youth, see the police as corrupt ab initio. So at the end of the day, it's like a mutually assured destruction.
It becomes us against them every single time.
Yes, so and we must not resort to that. It's a political thinking style to think that we are better, they are bad. But we must think critically by reasoning together, by understanding the nuances within our society. It is about culture, and we must engage it and change things so that we can build transformational leaders who are easy to govern, difficult to rule, and impossible to enslave.
Let me stay with you on this issue of the End SARS movement. A lot of people talked about the issue of not having a decisive leadership, which led to all of the fluid things that happened at that time. What would you say about this? Because the issue there is we had a lot of prominent people who were involved in the movement, either from the background, or behind the scenes, or even right there on the field.
I think even you can answer that question. The End SARS Reform Police NG movement is different from a protest. A protest is a reactionary knee-jerk, response or demonstration of discontent. The advocacy itself, it is far solid than that. The government knows this. We've been engaging the police. This is something our founding fathers have not done in 90 years. We've been doing this, and we've achieved a lot of things within that engagement that birthed the new police act, that birthed the police trust fund, and there are so many other things to come. And those things are even still being reviewed as we speak. So the advocacy has come to stay. We are still discussing. As of yesterday now at the House of Reps, they were talking about removing police from the contributing pensions. We're involved in all those things. It is not about protesters. Protesters don't come to the table to make policies. We are what the US, in the UK, what they call lobbyists. We look at gaps in the society, we put it into writing, we do this research, present it with the legislatives, and then we discuss how we're going to use it to better the lives of the people. You see, we are too laid back in this country where we think that by the time we have messiahs in place, they will come and fend for us or serve us. We have to be involved. Governance is not about leaving our future to politicians, but getting involved in the whole thing. A bird doesn't fly with one wing. We need to do our own. We need to take responsibility as citizens as well. So the End SARS protest may not have a leader, but the End SARS movement upon which the protest was premised on or built upon has leadership. There is a convener. You cannot say, oh, I have a certificate in flying a plane, so anytime I enter a plane, I will kick off the pilot from there. There won't be any pilot. We are all pilots. All of us can't fly the plane. We all can be captains of the ship. Even in Nigeria, there's a president. You can't say there's no president. We can all do anything we like. That's chaos. And God is not the author of confusion. Remember that when we look at civilizations and that we marvel at, Western civilization and the rest, even them, they respect the reasonability and the fact-finding ability of the Greeks. And they also factored in the Judeo-Christians principles, which speaks to morality, and a fusion of that bets a kind of ideology that gives them the kind of sustainable political atmosphere that they have, where people know that this is my political ideology and that is that. And that's exactly is one of the things that governs the End SARS advocacy. It is to protect lives, not to put lives at risk. It is to ensure that our youth have confidence in themselves and not to be law-abiding citizens and take leadership from where they are. Look at where we are coming from. As of 2017, how many people can report police crimes against them? As of 2017, Akuzu, SARS, and all, they are still in operation. People are disappearing. And we stood in front of the barrel of the gun and we were protecting the rights of the citizenry. But then it wasn't rosy to do that. As at that time, majority of the people you see today shouting NSAS and using NSAS as their handle or hashtag or their names, they were abusing us. That, oh, it's against the government, is this and that and that. Well, they are not supporting it because they cannot find, an in-route to how this can benefit them. But for us, it's not about benefiting us now. It's not about what we gain from it. It's about building a legacy for generations unborn and ensuring that our children don't face what we're facing now. I don't want to grow old and be running through police stations. I want it to be sorted. I want us to be able to pick any police officers on the street who can actually represent Nigeria anywhere in the world. I want a situation where my children will see police officers and wish to be like them. And that's where we're going. It is not to fight. It is not it's not a political engagement where we're doing we against them. It is about fixing our nation. It's about building our nation.
All right.
It's about responsibility.
All right. Now, Nii, quickly, how do we find closure to all of these? Because a lot of people still have, that thing. There's still that thing where
there is no
that edge somewhere.
There is no that way. I think it was this week Monday I was there and I was saying, the moment I leave Lagos to my village and buy a new Benz Jeep and I take it to my mom and she started calling the neighbors, come and see what my son has done, without asking me that, wait, when did you reach Lagos? What do you do? How do you make this money? Until we have a society that has value, we are just kidding.
He was talking about the family.
So there is absolutely no way you have this quick reach syndrome. You asked him the other time that there is no arrowhead because the people that are chasing NSAS, the proper NSAS crooners, are not people that want to cash out. Now, the people that took over the protest, or the people that you see as the faces on the street during the protest, are people that want to build the followership on social media. People that want to be more popular. People that want to cash out. And you could see them. People that were even sponsored by political parties or people with political interest in the country. So that was why you find out that the proper advocacy do not require cashing out or making noise. It is just for you to continue to do the brainwork. And until we get to that level where you see that if what youth are doing today that we are not careful of is that the moment we continue to eat our breakfast, lunch together and dinner, when we get to night time, we'll be hungry. The moment we need to when it is breakfast time, eat breakfast, leave the lunch, then take dinner. But what we have now is that people want to have their breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the same time. But when it is time for those meals, they still want to have to be served. And until you get to that point that there is nothing called quick reach syndrome. There is nothing called that you want to cash out using people's brain. If you do it legit, if society is just... See, why are people traveling to UK? It's because they have a system that works. It's because they have a system that respects humanity. It's because they have a system that reward people that are hardworking. Until we get to that point where we are ourselves. If you see, I was coming from Dubai, and when we were flying from DXB, you discover that all of us lined up at the airport. And when they were calling us, we were trooping into the aircraft one by one. When we got to Lagos, you see that they use this rope to barricade the road, and before you could know it, people that are well dressed, that were well behaved, very serious people that we flew together, you see them going under the rope in the airport and jump. I was not like, are we not the same set of people that just enter the same aircraft now? Do you know they are not part of it? They are still going to wait for their luggage at the conveyor belt. Right. So I now ask myself, what is the reason for you jumping the queue from the back
when we are all still going to wait
front?
Here?
You have a nation whereby people even get to Kotoko Airport in Ghana and they cannot drop sachet of pure water on the road. And here they are calling pure water on the road. As they were drinking it, they were throwing it in front of the vehicle. Until we have a society, we have a responsible citizenship. We will continue to have, and people are going to have a lot of wounds on heal because we have a society whereby citizens are not respect what citizenship is supposed to be.
All right.
And we have that, and we respect our value system, and the family system is put in proper place. See, we will not talk about NSAS, or even when SARS if NSAS misbehave, the NSAS will go and report itself. See what happened to the guy that killed Michael in UK. See what happened to the guy that stabbed somebody in UK, in US. Do people chase to say they want to kill that police officer? The police officer, the system apprehend them and put them where they belong. So until we begin to do this, It's not answer so.
All right.
We are going to end everything in this country.
All right. Well, we hope it doesn't get that ugly. We have to end it here now. Obani Akiwani.
You are ending it here as well.
I know we are ending the discussion. Thank you for coming on the program.
My
And
pleasure.
Segun Awosanya, thank you so much for coming
Thank
as
you
well.
very much.
And we wish you well in what you do. Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.